Parliament chose Keynes over politics. I think it's a good decision. It's the right decision. It allows the government to continue its important work in the middle of this pandemic.
That's the Liberal House Leader Pablo Rodriguez just minutes ago saying we avoided the election, we got the support of the NDP, and it's a good day. Well, a good day for them because they avoided the Conservatives' We committee. So there's no pandemic election. And with the sudden support of the NDP, that Conservative motion to strike the super committee that would investigate the We controversy, which of course the Liberals had designated a confidence motion, fails to pass. But why did the NDP in the end vote with the Liberals? Even as they kept saying they want to investigate the We expenses and they accused the Liberals of playing cynical political games. Let's find out. NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh joins us again today. Well, Mr. Singh, everyone wants to know, you had a meeting with your caucus today. Why did your party decide to vote against that motion and support the Liberals?
What we did is we voted against an election. We did not want to give the Prime Minister Trudeau, and the Liberal government the excuse they were looking for, which is really clear. They were looking for an excuse. And we didn't want to give them that excuse to go to an election. If the Prime Minister wants to go to an election, he'll have to have the courage to ask for it directly instead of trying to use the opposition as cover. And it became really clear when the negotiations broke down. They weren't interested in talking. They weren't interested in negotiating. They were really trying to go to brinkmanship to plunge this country into an election at a time when we're in a second wave. People are worried about the increasing numbers in two of the most populous provinces. So our decision was, we're not going to play that game. We're not going to give the Justin Trudeau the election he's looking for, and we are going to vote to continue to fight for Canadians, to hold them account through the Ethics Committee and the other committees and the tools that we have.
But sir, do you think that maybe it's you are the one who got played? The Liberals didn't negotiate because they said the NDP doesn't have the money. We're going to just make sure that they can say whatever they want, but they're going to vote with us. They're going to support us as they did from the speech in the throne, and they've got you where they want you. When they need you, they back you into a corner on a confidence vote. And in fact, they're playing you. You're not playing them.
Well, when you look at what this was about, so the Prime Minister was going to go to an election over a committee. Who sat in a committee? Like, no one understands that, and that would be ludicrous to try to make that argument to a family that's worried about their kids going to school or people who are worried about their loved ones in a long-term care home. That would be an absurd argument that the Prime Minister of Canada would try to make to people that I went to an election because of a committee. We're not going to be a part of that. What we are going to do is, while the Conservatives also played this game of making it look like this committee was the only way to get to the answers, to this point, the brothers, the Kielburger brothers, the documents, the ministry, all that happened at a regular committee. And we're going to continue to use those tools. We tabled today a motion to call for more witnesses. So far, getting to the bottom of We has all happened at the regular standing committees. The Conservatives have made this into a big play that this is going to somehow change the game. It's not going to do anything. We're going to continue to do our hard work that happens at the committees. The Ethics Committee has a chair that's not a Liberal. We're going to continue to use those tools and try to get to the bottom of if the Liberals are spending money on their friends instead of on people. We're going to continue to fight for people to make sure they get the help they need in this pandemic.
Mr. Singh, you're making a fair point that the threshold of a committee doesn't reach the threshold of a confidence vote to plunge the country into an election. I appreciate what you're saying there. But from a political point of view, do you also appreciate that it might be hard for people to understand you saying we're fighting against the Liberals by supporting the Liberals and keeping them in power? You realize that is pretty hard to parse, that kind of Ottawa logic.
Not at all. We've been, and I've been in a minority government before. Right now, we're in a minority government where we've got incredible access to the documents and to witnesses, more than we would ever have if we were not in this type of government. Right now, we've got a chance to hold the government to account. They need us to pass legislation that's not confidence. And again, we've shown we've been able to fight and secure massive victories for people. And we're going to continue to do that. It makes no sense for people who are worried right now to see in Ontario and Quebec, provinces that have got the highest numbers in terms of increasing COVID numbers to then say we're going to go to an election. That would not be something that I would want to do. If the Prime Minister wants to do that, he can go directly to the Governor General and make that request. But we're going to keep on fighting for Canadians. We've got the tools at ethics committees. Charlie Angus, one of our members of Parliament, has already put forward a motion calling for more witnesses. We are going to get to the bottom of this and use the tools that we have.
I appreciate that. So I'm just trying to follow the logic. And it's true in a minority parliament, the Liberals, the government, any government is forced to work with the opposition. But if you do get better access, opposition controls committee, all fair. But there's another way to interpret what you're saying, which is you guys like the minority government. You're the fourth place party. You've got some balance of power. So the Liberals may be able to rely on you more and more because you don't sound like you're that unhappy in a minority parliament. So they'll continue to be able to rely on the NDP to prop them up anytime they need it.
Well, the reality is we can just point to the results. We can look at, from the beginning of this pandemic to now, what can the Bloc say they've done for people? What can the Conservatives say they've done for people? Nothing. But when it comes down to it, most recently in the bill that was negotiated that brought in paid sick leave and kept the amount of support at $2,000, that was us that fought for that. And guess who supported it? All the parties. That was a confidence motion that Conservatives supported, the Bloc supported, and of course we supported, and we were the only ones that fought for people and got a victory for people. So throughout this pandemic, there's not a single thing that Conservatives or the Bloc can point to that they've achieved for people. We can point to students, help for them. We can point to help for seniors. We can point to paid sick leave. We fought and won numerous victories for people.
Fair point, Mr. Singh. But let's talk about this. In the past, for the speech and the throne, you extracted promises, as you said, on things like paid sick leave. Fair point. But in this particular situation, it doesn't sound like you extracted anything from the Liberals. Did you get a promise, for example, you had told me on this very program you wanted the Liberals to have a wealth tax. In return for supporting this particular motion, did you extract anything at all, or did they essentially win your support for free?
This vote was not to play the game of the Prime Minister, that Justin Trudeau wanted to use an excuse, have the opposition be used as cover for an election that he wanted. It was very clear that he was not interested in negotiating, and we didn't want to give him that. We're not going to let the Prime Minister get away with using the opposition as an excuse. This was not the time to go to an election over a committee, and so we voted against going to an election proudly and happily. That was the right thing to do. I've spoken with lots of Canadians, and they do not want to see our country plunged into an election over a committee. If there was something of substance that we were fighting for, it would be a different story. But this was about the Prime Minister trying to use find an excuse to blame the opposition for an election that he wanted. We're not going to be a part of that. We said, no, we're voting against an election. We're going to continue to fight for people.
Are you concerned that people can no longer take your criticism of the government seriously? When you say, well, I'm concerned about the ethics around the WE controversy, I'm concerned about other issues. If you keep propping them up, if you keep them in power, how does anybody take your criticisms of the Liberals seriously?
We can get answers right now. We have tools right now where we can get answers. We were able to bring people to committee. We were able to bring the Kielburger brothers to committee. We were able to get documents. We were able to question the minister. All this was possible because of the leverage we have right now. The accountability we have right now is unprecedented. We don't know what's going to happen in an election, but we know what we have right now. We've got the ability to get questions answered, to call witnesses, and we have so far done all that through the Ethics Committee and the Finance Committee and other committees. Now, the Conservatives would have you believe that the only way to get to the bottom of this was their motion. It wasn't. They know that. They know that so far the work that's been done happened at a regular standing committee. And more so, Canadians are they want to know that there's going to be help there for them. Small businesses I've spoke to who are wondering if they're going to have to shut their doors for forever. Students who are worried if they're ever going to get any help. These are the people that need help now, and we have an opportunity to continue to help them, and that's what we're going to focus on.
Okay. I got 10 seconds, but I don't know when the next, are you concerned that the Liberals will make anything a confidence vote now? The most likely one is the fiscal update. People are wondering, how will you navigate the fiscal update? And when do you think the next confidence vote could be?
It's really up to the Liberal government to decide that. The Prime Minister arbitrarily made this a confidence motion, which does seem to be pretty absurd and pretty arbitrary. But our focus is, again, how can we continue to fight for people? We've been able to secure some massive victories for people. We want to continue to do that. There's a lot more work that needs to be done. And there's also some unanswered questions. We can do all of that. We've got a motion in front of the Ethics Committee to ask more witnesses to testify to show, if the Liberal government is continuing to help their friends instead of people who need it. And we're also going to keep on pushing for help for students, help for those Canadians living with disabilities, help for seniors. We need standards for long-term care homes. There's a lot of work that we need to do, and we're only focused on getting that work done.
All right, so interesting vote today, Mr. Singh. No snap federal election. I appreciate you taking so much time to talk to our audience, and I know they do too. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.